Thank you very much, Cindy, for introduction. And it's really my pleasure to be here today. And I was tasked to talk about art of teaching. And then I really feel a little bit panicked because I don't know whether, it's really, I have the sufficient amount of experience to share about art of teaching. But anyway, since I've been in education for quite a few years, I just thought maybe share a little bit, very limited of my experience. And then most likely, I like to encourage you guys, stop me whenever you have questions, or afterwards we can have some discussions. And, any kind of questions you feel you want to ask, you want to clarify, or you want to explore further, to better prepare for the future teaching initiatives or the program that you're thinking about, to be able to contribute and give back to the community. All right, let's get started. So first of all, I just talk a little bit about myself, just, for you guys to know me a little bit. And I like also to hear about, some more information about yourself, hopefully through our discussion session. And then I will just basically briefly talk about three main things that I think it's very kind of essential in order to be, have a clear goal. And then when you're going into a classroom, before you go into a classroom, and first thing, know your learners, know your students, who your students gonna be, and then have a plan, what you're gonna teach, how you're gonna proceed, and then maybe sometimes a backup plan, right? And then the last, but not the least, I was actually think about is the most important thing, which is you should always think about how you can make yourself likable by your student, right? So I'm probably gonna spend about like 10-15 minutes to go through this briefly. Okay, so yeah, as Cindy just introduced, I got my PhD in 2006 from USC in computer science. Before that, I graduated in Peking University with BS major in computer science and economics in 1998. That was quite a long time ago. And then I joined Stevens Institute in Technology, which is in the East Coast in New Jersey, right across the Hudson River to the Manhattan city. So I joined Stevens in 2014. And then before that, I worked in Beijing for 6 years in Institute of Software, which is a kind of the National Research Institute on Software Technologies under Chinese Academy of Sciences. This is based in Beijing. And then before that, I worked in as a software engineer in Silicon Valley in the IBM labs for about a year. Okay, so yeah, so let me go back to just a little bit. So in terms of my teaching experience, I think, I did a little bit teaching assistant when I was in graduate school at USC, mostly like a very large class, like, more than 100 students, mostly graduate level students. And then sometimes, mostly you get help the professors grading the homeworks and then answering all the students' emails, inquiries. But sometimes you do get to assigned to help professor prepare a few slides or even go give the lectures in the classroom. So in any kind of graduate study, you have chances, opportunities to get exposed to build up your teaching experience. That's actually quite fun because you get to talk to all kinds of students with all kinds of backgrounds. And then when I was working in Beijing, mostly like, it's not an education intensive organization. It's most purely like we're doing research projects, but you get to, constantly work with a group of masters and PhD students, and you do get to, mentor them on a daily basis. So even though it's not in a normal, classroom setting, but still, you have a team environment, and then when there's any kind of projects going on, and you get to pull them to a kind of the conference rooms, and then sometimes, a lot of times, you get to arrange all kinds of training and then education sessions, and then we get to study together with the students. So there are all kinds of different learning settings. That's what basically I want to emphasize. So even for now, I understand you guys are very busy with your coursework. You can start to observe. You have you work with different type of teacher, and then teacher from different school. You can observe, starting to think about what are their kind of teaching styles, and what are some of the teaching technology they are using. Those can also, you can adapt to that, and sometimes you can incorporate in your own teaching later on. All right. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is basically there's always constantly looking for the techniques and skills, even though your students, and you have expectations to your teacher, right? So you can turn that into something you can learn on, and then to better prepare for students later on. Okay, so with that, I think I'm going to talk about, I just want to share with you guys, as I mentioned, 3 main things that I think I found actually that are very helpful for myself to be a better or more effective educator in working with students. So the first thing is that you got to know your audience, know your learners. So, I think the idea is very basic, right? Even your teacher, same thing. If you're teaching it to a high school student or teaching to an elementary student, you got to use different approaches, right? Because you depend on the background of your students, of your learner. You got to pick different languages so that they are more comfortable, or they are more like ready to understand the concept, the ideas you're trying to explain to them, right? So in terms of the background, or there are different dimensions to characterize the learner's background, experience, interest, something like their biologic traits, their culture and society factors. Sometimes the emotional, depend on the subject you're teaching, right? Emotional and social influences that you're undergoing at certain moment. And if we're focusing on computing and STEM field, they're priority academic preparation, academic performance, which will be probably the most dominant factors that you can consider. And then their learning preferences, of course. If it's in a more general setting, teachers got to maybe like a more effective instrument that I found is that typically I want to prepare for some kind of the pre-class questionnaire, so that I can have the students to fill out, and then I can collect some information about their different factors that I think maybe for me to better understand where my students coming from, right? So there you sometimes you may think, okay, how will that help, right? But it's in my experience, I think sometimes it's quite surprising the results you're getting. So the students and sometimes the students are more willing to share more information than you expected. So when you're teaching different topics, and then if you can remember where some students particularly have some previous experience or achievement on that, you can relate it. So that I think it's a good chance for how you can make the students feel really the instructor or the teacher knows me or is closer to me, so that the fact that the students feel they're closer to the teacher, or there's a kind of sometimes it's really kind of more making the learning processes more motivated and more kind of incentivized, right? So, and I put a link at the bottom here. It's basically, there's more information about a lot more like different factors, different dimensions for how if you want to know more about your learner. I think when you're designing your course, or depend on the depths and then breadth of the course, the topic you're going to teach in the future, and most likely depend on the mission of this Girl in Computing organization. We're trying to reach out to the underserved, underrepresented communities, right? So that give us some general idea, and then we still need to know a little bit more about our students' background. That's why we have to ask the students to fill out some kind of information. Do check on those before, when you're preparing for your class, all right? So sometimes you can find some very useful information for how you can maybe adjust your teaching plan, or how you want to communicate with your students, and which would potentially improve your course a lot, okay? So are there any questions on this? All right, maybe you can discuss at the end. All right, let me move on to the next part then. So I think the next part, which is quite obvious, is basically for teaching any kind of topic, right? If you're teaching a course that's relatively, very, I would say like a challenging or intellectually challenging in terms of the critical mass of the subject content, you got to better have a plan, right? So, which I'm pretty sure every one of you have a plan, and the basic plan will be your syllabus. So there are basically some main parts, main modules, and in each modules, there are certain content, certain topic you want to cover. And then of course, you're gonna have your examples, in-class activities, and also homework assignments, right? So those are the main elements. But when you see the word plan, it basically means much more than what you can cover or what other stuff in the course syllabus. So first of all, basically when you think about the course, the syllabus as a set or list of modules. So what are the reasons you arrange those list of modules, right? So there are basic objectives behind each of the module. So you want to communicate the learning objectives for each of the module with the students very clearly, right? And then for each module, before you start going into the details content, you want to start with a review. Start with a review, basically give the students a chance to review where are we so far, what we discussed last week, and depending on the pace of your course, maybe once a week. So students may already forgot maybe 90% of that. So starting with a review will be very kind of helpful for most of the students to really, warm up a little bit. Okay, yeah, last week we talked about, this algebra or some geometry, this kind of stuff. So I always start with a review. It's kind of also help you to be focused, because you want to emphasize, okay, maybe in the new topic, and then there's some concepts building on the concepts we learned last week, and then there's new concepts, so we can focusing on explain the new concepts a bit more. So and then the plan, I would say best practices for how to prepare a better plan or more effective teaching strategies that you can flexibly tailor and then incorporate into your course preparation. The review is what I find very important, and also the new material should be prepared in small steps. This is especially important for this K-12, the elementary school or middle school or high school age students. So it's basically, a good example is that when you go to the online learning website like a Coursera or a Khan Academy, right? So you can find those new materials, new concepts are most likely, most of the videos will illustrate the concepts, try to keep it in less than maybe 3-4 minutes, right? So if you think about the reason why that, and then compare with the traditional teaching setting, which is in the old school types, like 45 minutes or 1 hour lecture time. So the reason behind this transformation is that, really kind of related to the discoveries about how our brain works, and also how, what type of techniques or strategies are most effective in terms of the e-learning, online learning environment. So if we can package the new topics in kind of relatively more like self-explaining short modules, and then if we're preparing a lecture and try to keep the length of the lecture, if we are taking videos, right? So as short as possible, like no more than 3-4 minutes. Otherwise, the human brain can very easily get distracted. I think maybe some of you already kind of find that I've been lecturing. It's kind of my something I still need working on that, because mostly I'm teaching like the graduate level course, and then it's like 2-3 hours. I just take several breaks in between, but I can easily get the students lost. If I'm rate for one of the big lessons learned during my teaching experience, it will be try to cut down the size of the lecture time, the amount of lecture time. So small steps, or package each concepts in small video, like very short videos, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, no more than 3-4 minutes. It will be more effective. So because it's more flexible, and the students may already know like several topics they want to focusing on, to review stuff on a particular topic, so they can directly go to that 1 minute video, other than open up a 1 hour long video and then find out, to drag back and forth to find out where they should go over. So those are I think it may when you think about preparation, it may take a little bit planning about, okay, so should I split my lecture into 10 topics or 5 topics, and then if you're preparing in-class activities or assignments, and it's also another level of decomposition, right? But in terms of the learning outcome, I think it definitely kind of outperforms you just go there and give all the lectures, and then expecting the students will review from the beginning to the end. So I think always think about those small steps, and then in terms of learning, it's relatively easier, it's less intimidating for the students, right? So think aloud. It's I think it's basically the maybe like in classroom settings, and then you want to explain more things, explaining your thoughts, and then so that in a way that's more inviting, more engaging, and then students, and then welcoming students to chime in to raise any questions. And then the guided practices, those are is basically so for any kind of assignments or homeworks you're designing for the students, you want to have a similar, right, similar problems. Whether you take the students go through the example problems, go through the problem solving process, or show them half solutions, right? So give them some kind of problem solving tactics, or additional hints, or additional guidelines, right? So there's a lot of online materials there. So if you're preparing for your lectures, if you just try to use the right searching strategy, you're gonna find a lot. There's basically there's some people really born to be genius teacher, right? So I would suggest you to try to spend some time to really try to identify those already reusable or open source homeworks, assignments, examples in there. It's so much more effective than you go ahead and design your own problem, right? So because there are people that are really expert people are studying or researching on the education methods and education strategies. So almost for any kind of topic, there are existing materials. Sometimes if if you're trying to explain some complicated concepts, if you're not satisfied, if you feel, okay, I'm not very confident, I'm not sure if I'm explaining this clearly, and feel free, go to get some online help, and then watch some YouTube video or Khan Academy videos. You can mimic how the expert are teaching on the same topic, and you can reuse some of the existing problems, existing examples, because the reason they are designed in there have some internal logic, and then there are people already spend hours to design on those. So feel free to use that. And yeah, we already talked about the learning objectives, using graphic organizers. So we already know, like everyone knows, like a picture is more than, how do you say, picture is worth more than 1,000 words, right? So if there's a way to organize your teaching materials in a hierarchical way or structural way, and then feel free to use it. It's basically that's how human brain organizes these different concepts. If we see a list of definitions, textual definitions, meaning we need to spend a lot of time trying to memorize that, right? But if we see a picture, and we can very easily to remember the relative position and then the relationship among different items in the picture, right? So it's a lot easier to remember that. Concept sorting, and then check for understanding is basically you want to depend on your classroom size. I'm pretty sure your teacher sometimes doing this, checking, right? In classroom chatting, will call names and then give your kind of pop easy questions, at least to check if you're there, or if you're absent-minded, or if you're really kind of following what the teacher is talking about. That's a very sometimes it's important techniques to check for the the kind of synchronized understanding of your students. And also it's but don't try to use it to kind of intimidate the students. I mean, you want to use some easy questions, and you want to constantly try to be more like friendly, and then be more encouraging for the students to be participating. So I think this online setting, one of the challenges is that how we can really know the students are really participating, right? So always using different, kind of checking techniques to make sure that your students are there and then they are interested, okay? So sometimes I think maybe just, at the beginning of your class, or if you want to check in something, just throw a joke or talking about something totally irrelevant, like the weather or the sports, or just share a little bit story about yourself. and maybe how you learn that concepts when you're in school. So the students like to feel really kind of, the students like to know more about you. So you, as you're the teacher, and then students and teacher, typically there's a kind of Tom and Jerry relationship, right? But I think the you want to make your the learning processes, and also you make your students to be really how would you say, they will, you want to make your ensure your students it's totally okay to signal or to ask for help whenever they feel confused, right? So you want to emphasize, keep emphasizing on that. Yeah, the last thing for the plan part is basically the feedback, provide feedback. So those are, there are different ways to collect feedback, emails, or you can use a chatting like Discord or Slack channel to constantly communicating with your students, or you can provide feedbacks when you're grading their homeworks, right? So there are different ways to at least let the students know that, how they can do better, how they can improve. And then you can also ask students to provide feedback for your teaching. And then that's kind of also very important for you to know, okay, how, which part I should try to change, try to improve next time when I'm teaching the next class. All right. So I think those are the main things related to the plan and replanning, and then replanning. This is a constant process. Even, for myself, over the years, I teach different course, but even for the same course, every year, I'm still feeling, there's plenty of opportunities for me to update my course, update my, the tools and then the assignments I'm using last year, because I always feel that, because there's a lot of changes in terms of the technology, and also in terms of the new materials coming out. So should always keep your mind open, and always looking for the better things that can help you to be a more effective teacher. Okay. All right. So yeah, the last thing. So the last thing I would say, this is the most important thing. I will just stop here, and then I think it's quite the message is very clear. It's very short. Students don't learn from someone they don't like. So I think the most important thing is that trying to think about how you can make your students like you, how you can make yourself likable. So and then in real life you can be very cool, and then you can be into different kind of hobbies, right? But if you're thinking about an instructor or educator as a profession, and then there's a lot of online training or tutorials talking about that. And then I've been sitting in a lot of tutorials, workshops about how to improve my own teaching. So I think one of the most interesting comment I've heard about is actually the when you go into a classroom, before you go into a classroom, think about yourself as an actor. You want to actors certain, you want to basically think about how you can better or maximize your teaching effectiveness. And then when you go to present those materials, it doesn't necessarily you have to show the true yourself. You have to show the true character, true personality of yourself. You want to basically, if you got to be funny and you want to talk to a group of kindergarten students, you have to be act funny, right? And then if you're going to talk to some high school students, the students may be really kind of very challenging. They would like to throw in very challenging questions. They want to make you feel maybe panicked. Don't do that. So you want to maybe pretend, or you want to act very cool, and then you want to. And I think when we talk about those challenging questions, and it's normal because we have our limits of our own personal knowledge or personal capabilities. So it's normal sometimes you get to ask some questions that you cannot answer. It's totally okay. It's totally okay. Just calm down. Do not panic. Okay. Just say, I will need to get back to you later. All right. So that's totally fine. So we just need to think about teaching is really even though we did a lot of plan, still there's kind of be a lot quite often there will be unexpected situation coming up. It really, those are very precious moment for us to reflect and for us to be thinking about and then better overcome our own kind of nervous or stress, and then think about how we can get out of those moments in a more like a graceful way or in a more like a professional way. So those are actually the very precious moment for how we can improve to be better, right? So I think I just stop here and then to see if you guys have any questions. I think that's all I want to I have to say. Thank you very much for you guys for your time.